hands behind your back.
What is wrong?
Put your hand behind your back. Put your other hand behind your back.
Wake up! Put in park!
Put the car.
Put in park! There we go.
Oh,
Hey,
hello.
nice. The police department.
Hey, get on your stomach.
Just comply.
Just comply.
Just
comply. Just comply for now. Just comply. All right. Just comply for now. Right now you're safe. You are safe. You got a sovereign plate on there. You did comply with my officer here.
Some people seem to believe that the world revolves entirely around them and that they can do whatever they please, but this is what happens when these entitled people run into the cops.
Close your door. Close your door. Hey, get back in your f***ing car. Get back in your car.
No, not. I parked correctly.
6205 dispatch. Female's walking away from the vehicle. Take
I
another
parked
unit.
already.
Put your hands behind your back. You're not walking away from the traffic stop. Put your hands behind your back.
Get in.
Put your hands behind your back.
Please go.
Put your hands
Get
behind
your
your back.
hands away
Put your
from
hands
me.
behind your back.
Get your hand.
Put your hands behind your back.
What is wrong?
Put your hand behind your back.
Do
Put your
not
other
do
hand behind your
that.
back. Put your other hand behind your back.
Hold on. Get off me now.
Put your hand behind your back.
No.
Put your hand behind your back.
This woman, whose name has not been released by the police, was pulled over in a traffic stop in October of 2023. The officer in this footage spotted the woman driving with an open container of alcohol in the cup holder, which gives him probable cause to pull her over. He is being a bit forceful with her and somewhat aggressive in dragging her back over to the car, though it did seem like she was just going to continue walking away from him if something wasn't done.
What is wrong with you? No, stop.
Put your other hand behind your back.
Sorry, babe. No.
Hey, man. I'll put
Get off of me.
5 dispatch. I got one female resisting counties out with me. Put your hand behind your back like I told you.
This kind of language from a police officer is completely unnecessary, even in a situation like this. At this point, it's quite clear that she's either drunk to the point of delirium or on some other mixture of drugs along with the alcohol that is impairing her judgment. Even so, police officers are operating in the professional requirements of their job, which should not include cursing at someone who is verbally disagreeing like this.
I did nothing wrong.
Yes, you did.
What did I do wrong? Ow.
Stand up.
Stop. I will.
No, you're not going to walk away from a traffic stop.
It was not a traffic stop. Sorry. It was not. Are you serious? Are you serious? Are you
Thanks, man.
serious?
Appreciate you stopping. Yeah, you can't just walk away from a traffic stop.
I didn't.
It's all on
Thank
camera.
you.
It's all on camera.
How is it? No, I didn't.
Oh, sorry. Walk to my car over here, okay?
No, my purse. No.
Yes, yes, yes. You're under arrest.
Why? Please stop.
She just left your car.
Please stop.
If you didn't catch that, the woman just asked why she was being arrested, and the police officer did not respond. Of course, to most people, it's pretty evident why she's being arrested at this point, but she still has the right to know the exact reason she's being arrested, which the officers do not give to her. Also, she seems to manage to slip her cuffs, which calls into question the integrity of the equipment. How could a drunk woman like this actually get out of police-grade handcuffs?
I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, do you mind searching it, please?
Yeah.
Sparky feeling.
Yeah, that's fine.
Do you have anything that's going to fuck in your friend?
No. Are you
That's pretty
serious?
dumb. Yeah, I'm serious. That was really dumb what you did.
What did I do? I didn't do nothing wrong.
Okay.
It's worth noting that the police officers wait for a female officer to be there in order to search her. Probably a good move to cover their bases.
Okay. So with your slurred speech, your open alcohol container, your bloodshot watery eyes, your behavior, you're under arrest for DUI as well, okay? So DUI and resisting without violence, okay?
I didn't.
All right, well, it's all on camera, so have fun with that.
The officer finally does tell her what she's being arrested for, which he should have done way sooner. The reason of the arrest was DUI, as well as resisting arrest without violence. All of that was captured on video as well. so it's very likely to be an open and shut case in the courts. Unfortunately, there hasn't really been any reporting on this case yet, as it only happened a few weeks ago at the time of this video. But it's very likely she'll be charged under both counts. Fortunately, in the next case, we do know what happened, even if the punishment received wasn't remotely justified. Amanda Caravala. What you just saw is about 30 seconds of uninterrupted footage of a woman with the key in the ignition, the car and drive, and she is entirely unconscious. If you're unfamiliar with why the officer didn't knock on the window right away, it's to catch enough footage in order to refute any claims that she wasn't asleep or that she wasn't paying attention. It's actually come in handy for quite a few cases so far, and is one of the many ways that body cams have improved things for everybody involved in detainments.
Whoa. Wake up! Put it in park!
Put the car
Put it in park! Put the car in park!
Put the car in park.
Put the car in park!
Damn.
Police department, put the car in park!
Car in park.
Just from this initial stop, it's pretty clear to see that this woman is completely out of it. She not only doesn't listen to what the police are saying, but actually leans her head back as if she's going to go to sleep again. It's an absolutely absurd thing to do, in every sense of the word. If you haven't heard of the name Amanda Caravala, well, I can't really blame you. But she actually had quite a big following on TikTok of all places. Unfortunately, this very video led to what was effectively the death of her entire career, with TikTok deleting her account and nearly every single fan turning against her.
Damn.
Put it in park!
Put the car in park.
Wake up!
Put the car in park. Hi, car in park. Officer, put the car in park. Wake up.
Come park over here. Wake up! Wake up, wake up, wake up! Put your car in park.
The officers are being so insistent on her putting the car in park because it's very dangerous for them, as well as everyone around them, for her to be able to step on the gas at any given time. One of the officers has parked his own car in front of her in an effort to stop this, but she could still hit it and swerve around to keep going down the road.
Open the door.
Ma'am,
Put the car in
open the door. Open the door. Open the door. Police department, open the door. Close. Little more.
Can you put it in park?
Hey! Unlock it. Excellent. There we go.
Oh,
Hey,
hello.
nice. Police department. Why don't you do? Take your seatbelt off. Step out. Hammered. Or high, we don't know.
It's funny to note that as soon as the doors are opened, she starts trying to talk coherently to the officers, as though they're going to forgive and forget the several minutes where she was just attempting to fall back asleep while they were surrounding the car.
Huh?
They're both.
Know where you're at?
They're both, yeah, checking out for seats. I think you guys are like shit. You know what I'm saying?
Relax for a second.
Oh,
Do you know where you're at?
yeah.
Where?
At the decision,
At the what?
I still live in.
At the what?
At the decision that.
Go step over here.
Hey, we're gonna go over here. Going over.
This woman's language is entirely incoherent, to the point where the officers can't even distinguish the words she's trying to say. To be driving in a condition like this is a serious danger to everyone else on the road.
Cop car.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you crashed into just now.
Me?
Yes. How much have you had to drink tonight? How much have you had to drink tonight? Look at me. Hello. Hello.
Do you know where you're at?
Where are you? Do you know where you're
Yeah,
at?
I'm looking at the cop cars that are...
Yeah.
Check that the male has actually hit out the turn after the
Okay.
You know you were asleep at the light? Can you answer our questions?
I'm sorry, I'm looking at the cop cars that are...
Yeah,
Okay.
because you were asleep at the light.
Listen.
Yeah.
All right.
Because,
Can you look at me for a sec?
what's up?
Can you answer my questions? Where are you?
I'm at... What time is it?
You don't even know?
You don't know? It's
No, I don't know because
Okay.
I'm driving a car in the middle of the
Amanda.
night.
Amanda, how much have you had to drink tonight? Be honest.
What time is it?
3 o'clock.
Okay, 3 o'clock.
Yeah, how much have you had to drink?
3 o'clock. I've had 3 o'clock to drink tonight.
Well, evidently this woman has had 3 o'clock to drink tonight. Obviously, from the way she's slurring her words and speaking incoherently, this woman is far beyond any legal limits on alcohol. We also hear that she did crash into one of the police cars, likely during their attempt to stop her.
He is too young. Is he like your
He's my brother-in-law, and I'm waiting for him to call you for me to do what? What am I doing right now that's illegal that...
You were asleep in the traffic lane and you put up the brake pedal.
Amanda was, of course, arrested in the end, charged with DUI, and she was indeed convicted with it, but she only received 6 days of community service and 12 months of probation. I don't think this is nearly close to a proper punishment for the things Amanda did. You saw how inebriated she was, and how she could have seriously hurt people. It seems like she got off much too easily in the end, without a felony on her record. This next case, however, definitely did result in a felony. PJ Pratt.
How's it going, man? Why did you pull me? Say that again? Why did you pull me? Because you have a possible suspended license. You have your driver's license on you? You don't have your driver's license on you. Man, I can barely hear you. You have your badge and ID on you. I do have my badge and ID on me. And what's your name and who you work for? My name's Officer Stetson, work for Pinehurst Police Department. Business card? I don't have a business card on me. And you said something else. Yeah, that's my call. That's my call sign. That's not your name. I need to know who you are. I need a business card.
This body cam footage starts out with 2 people sounding relatively polite. The man in the car is quite defensive and hasn't rolled down his window, but he isn't required to do so and is currently following the law. The police officer, in turn, hasn't been pushy or made any demands, simply informing the man why he was pulled over and answering his questions. If all traffic stops went like this, things would be great. Unfortunately, things get a whole lot worse from here.
For a possible suspended license, what's your first name?
You do know that you're not required to have a license to drive, right?
Yes, you are.
Travel? I'm be a traveler.
Okay. I'm not here to argue with you.
I'm not arguing either.
Yes, you are.
I was having a good day.
What's your first name?
You ran a tag, so you pulled me because a lot of that. Put in the tag, so you pulled up for it.
The man in the car seems to pull out quite a thick stack of documents, and then suddenly claims that he doesn't need a license to drive his car. Hopefully, most of you know you do need a license to drive in every state within the United States. There are several movements that claim you don't, but none of them are actually based in law. We'll see which movement he's a part of in a moment.
What's your first name?
According to Colin V. Lawson, I don't have to identify myself.
Yes, you do.
I'm not required to identify myself.
Sir, I'm asking you what your name is. What's your first name?
I mean, you know, before I say anything else, anything I say now is under threats, and extortion.
No, this is an investigation. It's an investigatory traffic stop. What's your name?
There's no problem or emergency.
I'm not going to argue with you.
I'm not arguing either, sir.
Give me your name.
Okay.
It's worth noting that simply stating anything said now is under duress is not enough to qualify for duress. There are specific criteria that have to be met, which are not being met currently, because all the officer is doing is asking the man to identify himself, which under US law, he is required to do.
Alright, if you prolong this anymore, I'm not
required by law to...
You are required by law in the state of North Carolina.
No, I'm not, because I state North Carolina.
You know the little thing you sign when you get a driver's license? It's called implied consent. You know what that is?
I never signed nothing.
Because you don't have a license?
And then on top of that, sir, you are threatening me right now.
How am I threatening you?
Because first you said something about if I prolong this any longer, you said something.
It's only going to be worse for you.
No, actually it's not, because I've already had a case like this where I prevailed, and just like this, I have it on camera, just like this.
Uh-huh.
So I'm actually trying to help you.
Okay.
Actually.
Where was your case tried at?
Cumberland County.
In Cumberland County?
Yes, sir. And I definitely prevailed.
Or Knoxville.
Definition of ID. I'm not required by law to be speeding.
Alright, what's your first name?
PJ.
What is it?
PJ.
PJ? Yes. You do know that lying to a law enforcement officer is
I'm not lying, that's my name. You can ask anybody.
PJ Pratt.
That's my name.
Okay, what's your date of birth?
12/25.
What year?
I was a baby.
You don't know what year you were born?
I really don't even know what the correct date I was born.
So this is suspicious. His name, of course, could be PJ, but it's exceedingly rare for a first name to simply be 2 letters. Even so, the officer identified himself with a nickname or call sign at the start of a stop, so that's kind of fair play. But PJ saying that he doesn't know what year he was born, that would be quite strange.
He's saying he doesn't.
Who are you?
Do you have a driver's license?
Not on me. Who
Okay,
are you?
I need your driver's license or your ID card, please.
Who are you? Who are you? Let me see your business card.
Identification, please.
I'm not required by law to show you my identification.
You're going.
Easy way or the hard way?
Threat, though, and I got you.
Easy way or the hard way?
Just so you know. I'm getting my
Pull it out.
Easy way or the hard way?
Well, just so you know.
I don't care.
What's his real name?
ID, break it out.
That's also a threat. Sledge.
Give me your license. I saw your license. I already saw the driver's license. Give me the license.
It's all a paper.
Yeah, the paper license.
He's about to come out of that car.
Yes, he is.
I'm not coming out of the car.
You're gonna come out.
That's a threat. I'm getting all the video camera.
Hand it in. There you go. Yeah, that's it. Spin him. Let's pick up. Out of the car. Again, you're gonna do it the easy way or the hard way. Got it. Hey, grab my shit.
745-643. Westbound on 211.
The officers got a little pushy at the end there and did seem to be making threats, saying the easy way or the hard way. However, taking off during a traffic stop is obviously a bad idea, no matter what the circumstances are. And with the way the man was acting, it doesn't seem like this will go over well.
Alright, if we get him boxed in, get him out of that car. Block the car in and get him out of it.
This was definitely avoidable. It's never good to see officers pinning a man to the ground, but at what point does he become too much of a danger to allow him to keep going? He ran several red lights during that chase, and could have killed somebody. He believes he's exempt from the law, and because of that, we can infer that he's a part of the sovereign citizen movement.
Bring your knee up to your chest. Which one? That one right there. All right. Both of them. Bring both of them.
Where you from? Moore County. Where at Moore County? From Eagle Springs. Yes. You trying to get home? I'm trying to get home, and he pulled me for no reason. Then here comes Sledge, acting like he was about to break my window.
All right, I'm gonna set you up. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. All right, you stand up. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, up.
Over here.
And then y'all broke my vehicle for no reason. That's what happens when you roll through the fucking car. Well, I didn't know who was who. You don't know how many lives you just threw around here, so I don't want to hear you take them out. First off, you just
Go ahead and sit down.
You sit down and quit talking. My phone.
Sit down.
I think I hit me.
One of the officers brings up the point that PJ just put many lives at risk running through all of those red lights. He wasn't pulled over for no reason, despite how much he might believe he doesn't need a driver's license. People need to understand that they can't just decide which laws they want to follow with the country they live in.
You do know it also isn't against the law to not someone calling the be lost in state. It is not a crime to not identify self.
So, can I put
That
it
has
in the
been
jar,
proven.
or do I need to take it back out? All right. Shoot, where's that blunt wrapper that he had?
My man is doing dip. He is dipping on the job. He is not in the right mindset to be working as an officer.
We see plenty of drug paraphernalia while PJ is shouting and screaming in the background. It's unclear whether or not he's on any drugs at this time, but even so, driving with them in the vehicle is illegal.
I see I'm being told what I'm being charged with, why I'm being detained.
All right, buddy. Hey, listen up. Just listen. Nope.
I'm listening.
You have the right to listen.
Okay, I'm
All right,
listening.
you have the right to remain silent, and not say anything which might incriminate yourself. Anything you say or can and will be used against you in a court of law. You can stop answering questions I ask you at any time. You have the right to have a lawyer with you when you go to court or during questioning. If you cannot afford a lawyer, one will be appointed to you. Do you understand these rights?
No.
You don't understand these rights?
No.
Okay, well, I've read them to you verbatim, okay?
I don't even know what that means.
If so, do you wish to proceed with questioning at this time?
I don't even know. Anything you say now, like I said before,
So anything you say from now on
anything
can
that
be used.
anything that happened from earlier, like I said before, till now, has been under threat, duress, and consortium, and that's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay, well, I've read you your rights, okay?
This man claiming to not understand the rights that were just read to him, when he has very clearly been claiming to understand other laws that are entirely inapplicable, clearly shows that he's just trying to be difficult. After this point, not much else is found, and he's taken back to the police station for booking. His name was eventually found. He is Harold Platt, and he was charged with a laundry list of crimes, including the following: eluding arrest with a motor vehicle, possession of a Schedule 6 controlled substance, possession of marijuana paraphernalia, injury to personal property, assault of a government employee, resisting a public officer, driving while license is revoked, reckless driving, speeding, and the cherry on top, an improper pass too close to the left. The sovereign citizen movement is dangerous, and unfortunately Harold isn't the only one to be caught in a situation like that. Watch this. Matthew Tong.
Hi, I'm Officer Wood from Sonoma Police Department. The reason I stopped you is it appears you have a fictitious license plate on the back of your vehicle. Do you know anything about that?
I'm a sovereign human being.
Okay.
And I'm an American national.
Okay. Do you have your driver's license, insurance, and registration, please? What?
No.
Do you have any form of ID on you?
No, Matthew Tucciarone is my name.
Okay. All right. So just so
I've
you
been
know.
pulled over a couple times already by state troopers, sheriffs, and this is recognized. Okay.
Okay, I don't agree. So
Okay, well.
I'm going to be honest with you. That's actually a misdemeanor crime for you to display a fictitious license plate. Additionally, you not providing me with the driver's license is required under Arizona Revised Statutes 28-1595. That is also a misdemeanor crime. Additionally,
Using a fictitious license plate isn't a crime you see every day. Most people don't have the gall to outright fake their license plate, usually choosing instead to use one that just has an expired tag or something along those lines. This man also immediately made his sovereign citizen status known, which probably made the officer's heart sink. These people are notoriously difficult to deal with, as seen with the fact that he immediately rolled up his car window when being read his charges.
all right, go ahead and step out, please. Step out of your car, please.
I didn't do anything
Mayor
wrong.
1, I need another unit. Step it up, please.
I did not do anything wrong.
Pennsylvania versus Mims is a Supreme Court case law that says you're required to get out of that car if I ask you. If you do not, I'm going to force you to.
Hold on a second. I'm calling my lawyer.
Okay, get out of your car.
Calling my lawyer.
You can call your lawyer if you want, but as soon as another officer gets here, I'm going to force you out of that car if you don't get out on your own.
This officer has actually been pretty good about reading out the exact statutes and case laws relating to why he is detaining this man, Most of them simply tell them it's the law. The man is definitely allowed to call his lawyer, but he is required to step out of the vehicle when asked.
Mary, what I'm code for now, he's just not getting out of his car.
I don't need to be under arrest. I didn't do anything wrong.
You're being detained right now. And Pennsylvania versus Mims is a United States Supreme Court case law. You're being detained.
Why?
Because I told you, I'm investigating one crime.
Okay.
You also said you don't have a driver's license, which is another one. And if you don't provide me a form of identification when I'm investigating you for a crime, that is a third crime that I'm investigating you for.
There is no crime.
You are required by law to provide me your true full legal name if I'm investigating a crime.
Okay, well, this car...
If you do not provide me with your true full legal name, you can be arrested for that.
Matthew Tucciaroni.
Okay. Do you have a driver's license or any other form of identification?
I am a sovereign being. My name is Matthew Tucciaroni.
It's just bizarre that despite an officer of the law telling him that there are multiple crimes going on, he truly doesn't believe that he's committed any crime. He also once again brings up that he's a sovereign being, which is one of the statements that this group uses in the hope that it'll get them out of whatever situation they're in at that moment.
Get out.
No, I'm not getting out of the
okay.
car. This is
I'm going to give you...
I didn't do anything wrong.
All right.
I'm not getting out of
Matthew?
the car. I've done...
If you do not get out, I'm going to force you out.
Using force is never a good thing and should be avoided at all costs, but this man seems to be giving the officers no other choice. This could be a relatively minor thing, a couple misdemeanors, if he would actually accept the fact that he is breaking the law rather than using some sort of fringe ideology in order to justify what he's doing.
All right.
There's no reason to act like this. There's no reason to
Get
act
out.
like this. Do not touch me.
Get out.
Do not touch me.
Get out of your car.
Do not touch me. Do not touch me, please. Please, do not touch me.
I have asked you 10 times to get out. Get out on your own then.
What are you doing? Please, do not touch me.
It's jarring the way that his personality immediately shifts. He kept up the big and bad act until his door was actually opened, after which he started to sound whiny? There's not really any other way to describe it. It almost sounds like he's actually about to cry.
Officer Ramirez. Ow! Come on!
Get on the ground!
No! 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 I didn't do anything, Officer Ramirez!
Okay, all right.
Please, I didn't do anything!
Get on your stomach.
Come on!
Just comply.
Ramirez!
Just comply.
Just comply for now. All right. Just comply for now.
The force used here by the cops is a bit excessive. There was no reason to bring the man down to the ground like that.
If you want to file a complaint, I will give you that information, all right? I promise. My superiors will overlook everything. Okay, all right. But he had to repeat himself, all right? Like I said. All right, just stand up for me,
okay?
Stand up, all right? Matthew, what are you
Come on. Let's go back to your car.
What are you doing with the sovereign plate on?
Please don't. You are detained. You were detained from the beginning when I told you that.
Just relax, all right? I know. Just relax, okay? Right now you're safe. You are safe. You got a sovereign plate on there. You did comply with my officer here. Okay? All right, just relax, all right? You are safe.
Go ahead and take a seat for me, all right?
Just relax, Matthew, okay?
Just like this. I just want some.
Put your feet in for me.
I'm not gonna go.
Please just listen to my officer. Just
Put your
listen to
feet
my
inside,
officer.
please.
Okay? We'll get you some water. We'll make you some comfortable. Right now, we got to do what we got to do, all right? Okay? What's up? Just please comply, Matthew, all right? I'm here, all right?
The officers here are using de-escalation techniques in order to calm Matthew down, because it does seem like he started crying. It was also found that he had a concealed gun in his glove box, which did turn out to be entirely legal with paperwork in check. Even so, it's worth mentioning. There unfortunately isn't much information about Matthew's court case, though it's likely that with the body cam footage and everything seemingly in order, he was charged for the crimes he committed. People's entitlement will never cease to be shocking, especially when they're around people who could so easily change their lives for the worse. It's probably worth thinking over your actions just a bit harder when you're around a police officer.